Pastor Mike, thanks for joining us after you just got done preaching here at Life Point Lake Stevens, and we get to spend some extra time with you, ask some questions about the Sunday.
I love showing up still sweaty. It's perfect.
Love it.
Great.
And before we jump into the questions about your sermon, it's your birthday today.
It is.
Happy birthday.
Thanks.
54, 45.
Exactly.
Same thing.
54. Yeah.
I
I like saying I'm older than I am because then it makes me look better than I do. So that's
good advice.
That works. Yeah, exactly.
And so I wanted to ask a question that has nothing to do with your sermon, but if you could go back and give your 24-year-old self a piece of advice, what would it be?
Yeah, what a great question. Honestly, the first thing that popped into my head is like, relax, Howerton. Like, God is real and he loves you, and just trust him as you lead your family, the church, everything else. Because I think we strive so hard, or at least I know I have struggled with that. Yeah. Anxiety.
Were you ever like a workaholic, like working a lot during that time? And was it a lot of that?
Yeah, actually, it's funny because my wife and I are doing some good processing now as we look back in different seasons. And we were just talking this week about how, I don't know if you guys remember, this is ancient history, but the Seahawks won the Super Bowl. I don't know if you remember that. And then there's a big parade in Seattle, and she took the kids out of school and went down, and they were like, my staff was like, hey, let's go. And I just was like, no, hit it, grind, let's go. And missed out on an experience. It turned out to be the only experience that we could have had with Seahawks. And
Close to two.
And I was thinking, of course, nobody can remember the work we did that day. You know what I mean? So just examples like that, where I was always like nose to the grindstone, let's go. And I think there's a bigger picture, and we can trust God more.
Rest. I love it. You mentioned Caleb's resistance during a medical procedure. Caleb's your son.
Yep.
Medical procedure as a metaphor for cooperating with God's blessing. How can people cultivate a mindset of cooperation with God and their own challenges just in their daily lives?
Yeah, so the answer is in the question, because as you are processing, or let's just say me, I'm processing this now. I think I have to challenge myself. Am I trusting that there's a God who is real, who is powerful, and who loves me? Am I recognizing that he wants good things from me? Am I open to the good things that he wants from me? Or do I think I've got to make it work on my agenda, with my game plan, with my limited knowledge or resources or whatever it is? And so I don't know that I'm resistant until I'm aware of even that dynamic. So like I said, the answer is in the question. Even asking the question suddenly opens me up to the reality that God's present.
Yeah. And then how does somebody then become aware? Like, is it just time spent with God? Like, is it just something that happens over time?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think how can we become aware probably has to do with paying attention to the spaces where we're stuck, paying attention to the striving that we're doing internally. And I would say not just the striving, but the frustration that we're experiencing as we strive. And maybe it's in the moments of those frustrations, you find yourself having the same argument with your wife again. You find yourself in the same situation with finances. You find yourself in the same situation with temptation or failing to temptation or something. It's in those moments where you're frustrated, you're like, I'm here again. Then maybe that's where you go, I see Jesus encouraging me to have a more faith-filled response.
Yeah, no, that's good. And that story about Caleb also was, a really good imagery. And, if you didn't see it, make sure to watch our YouTube video. Mike Howerton just preached, and it was great. I think that we've all kind of been that, boy where it's just like, I feel like you guys are killing me and, all that stuff. Like, yeah, very relatable. You discussed the role of faith in Jesus's healing miracles. What would you say to someone that is in that space right now, waiting for a miracle, and they seem to have faith but don't see God's healing?
Yeah, this is such a great question. And honestly, my heart really goes out. In fact, I want to just say that was one of the comments that came up afterwards. A good friend of mine here at Life Point, he struggles with chronic pain. And so it's a great question, very relevant and real. And at the same time, what I see in this gentleman is what I want to applaud and affirm, that he is living as if his healing has already taken place, even though he still experiences the pain. In other words, he's not curling up in a fetal position. He's not giving up on life. He's not giving up on his leadership, his impact, his family. He's going for it, and he's living in vibrancy as much as possible physically, and yet he still experiences pain. That's kind of the overcoming mentality. And specifically on that, and there's all kinds of people that you can look at as inspirational, but one of the guys I look at a lot is a guy named Tim Hansel. He wrote a book called You Gotta Keep Dancing, and he, in a climbing accident, crushed his vertebrae, and so he was in chronic pain as well. I think he's passed now. But it's just a great reminder that this idea of pain, it's inevitable, but misery, optional. And so that's how we kind of need to step in. And so in the message, when I talk about walk as if, that's it. When Jesus said to that man by the pool of Bethesda, pick up your mat and walk, the man had no healing until he literally, as if he was healed, stood up, rolled up his mat, and began walking.
Yeah. What was that book again?
Tim Hansel, You Gotta Keep Dancing.
Okay. Maybe we link that in the description if anybody wants to read that. And then last question for you, and I love this part of your sermon so much, but you talked about sozo, salvation, deliverance, and healing. How can people maintain a mindset of victory and faith amidst life's challenges and uncertainties?
So, I mean, that's a huge question. I'd say in some ways, like, that's the whole message, right? And but in a nutshell, like, I wonder if I had a sticky note that said sozo on my computer screen and dashboard, and maybe by the mirror where I brush my teeth, if I saw it 3 times a day, I think I would, or 3 times, more than 3 times a day. But if I saw, sorry, I do brush my teeth in the morning and the night. So then that's 2. And then it's, but the idea of, if my awareness is there, and then my awareness brings some intentionality, then I recognize that regardless of what my mercurial feelings, or even my thoughts, which are really bouncing all over the place, but I can actually recognize that sozo is outside me. God has existed outside me. The salvation Jesus offers, it predates me. And so what I get to do is, with intentionality and mindfulness, apply it to my life once again. And so it's not like I'm not saved and then become saved in that moment. It's just that I'm already saved, and then I apply that salvation in how I'm experiencing life. It's really insane when you think about it, but so many of us, myself included, we think that life is what's happening to me. Circumstance outside myself, it's all external. And then I just respond to it, and then my emotions will follow what's happening to me. And I want you to understand, and I think this is where Jesus wants us to get, is it's not the moment that makes you happy. You bring your happiness to the moment. It's not the moment that brings you joy. You bring your joy to the moment. It's not the moment that makes you miserable. You bring your misery to the moment. And so you and I get a chance to actually live intentionally and mindfully with the agency that God has given us. That's why I think Jesus did not make a mistake when he said, your faith has healed you. He said, you have agency. You play a massive role in this dynamic. And if you want to experience healing, then you can.
Yeah. So good. Well, Mike, thank you for hanging out with us on LifePoint Extra, and we got
absolutely
spend some extra time with you. So
thanks so much. Good to be here.
Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. If you enjoyed this podcast episode, this will help you keep up to date with everything that we have coming out on LifePoint Extra.